on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 now, and we're continuing our Monday morning extravaganza here, known as O'Connor and Company. 7:35, Nick Minnock of Channel 7, talk about Loudoun County school systems. 8:05, Adam Gillette, president of Accuracy in Media. And now 8:15, Trevor Maddich will join us about the Commanders game. I'm Larry O'Connor. Hey, Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Joining us now, as he often does at this time every week, it's Joe diGenova. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
As usual, we have a ton to get to. I'll begin with the subpoenas. James Comer issued subpoenas to the House Oversight Committee for Hunter Biden's business associates, for the New York City and China art dealer. He has an art dealer in China. That's weird, isn't it? Hunter's art patron and major Democrat donor. Also, I believe that there were subpoenas issued for Hunter Biden himself. So, are you seeing this as the case continuing to be to build for the eventual impeachment?
No, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, James Comer has done a very thorough job. He's been very, very good about it. Been methodical, which is important to build the legal case, because most of the people are going to fight these subpoenas. They'll have to go to court to enforce them. I don't think any of the Biden family are going to willingly give up the information that's been subpoenaed. So this is a natural investigative step. There's nothing unusual about it. What's unusual is that it's taken so long to get here.
Yeah. Joe, and we'll continue to watch that. There's so much more I want to get to about, and mostly, one of the conversations we've had all morning has to do with the rising tide of anti-Semitism that we're seeing on college campuses. Even a middle school had a swastika painted on the desk of a Jewish student. College students are allowed to openly harass, bully, and intimidate Jewish students on campus. I don't know, maybe I'm old-fashioned. I got to think that that's against the law.
Well, it is. It's hate speech. The swastika is an internationally recognized symbol of anti-Semitism and hate. The situation with the school in Virginia is another example of a corrupt bureaucracy in the educational system in these schools in Virginia. They have abdicated all legal responsibility, that's for sure, but also all moral responsibility. For people who go out of their way to tell people which bathroom they can use and whether or not tampons are necessary in the boys' bathroom, it's stunning to me that they cannot say anything publicly about the swastika on a child's desk. I don't think there's any doubt that the parent involved in that has a legal action for inaction by the school itself, the administrator, the superintendent, and anybody involved in not doing anything about that. Because what comes next is violence against these children. These Jewish children, once this is encouraged, this type of outrageous anti-Semitic behavior, hate speech, there will be violence against these children, because these bigots will be encouraged to take action because nothing's happening no matter what they do.
Yeah. Joe, in Alexandria, Virginia, we had a similar rally, of course, where these students chanted "from the river to the sea" and other despicable things. This rally was on school grounds, and according to one person, actual school equipment was used as part of the organization of this rally, like the megaphones that were used. I have been told that they were school property. How is this not a violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act? Is there a lawsuit here? Could parents get together of these Jewish, and it doesn't only have to be Jewish parents, but could they sue the school district for failing to protect these Jewish students?
Well, there's no doubt they should do so. I don't think what's happening in these schools is an abomination. It is a complete abdication, as I said, of legal and moral responsibility by the school leaders, legally authorized principals, superintendents, teachers' unions who are allowing this to go on. Now, can you imagine if something like that was happening to an LGBTQ kid? There would be riots. The superintendent and all the people would be going crazy. But all of a sudden, it's okay to be an anti-Semite in Loudoun and Fairfax and Arlington County, and you're allowed to get away with it. I want to know where the think tanks are. There are legal think tanks that do nothing but litigate this stuff. They should be all over this, and they should be suing these people, not only to get an injunction to stop it, but for damages, for pain and suffering and all sorts of stuff. People should pay, including the superintendents involved in these things who are not superintending.
Right.
By the way, if there was any hunch amongst these school officials that the swastika had been painted by some, skinhead right-wing extremist MAGA fascists, we would all be, we'd have special school holidays for lectures about tolerance and everything. But they know who did this, and they know that it's Palestinian supporters, it's supporters of the Hamas terrorists and their October 7th massacre, and so they're keeping their mouths shut because they think that there's some kind of multicultural intersectionality that needs to be protected. Hate is hate.
This is discrimination based on the content of speech. That is a violation of the First Amendment. These school districts are public schools. They are state actors.
Yep.
They have the authority to stop this. By refusing to stop it, they are engaging in the suppression of free speech of the Jewish students. And they, without saying it, are encouraging the bigoted speech of the other students. So this is a no-brainer, and so litigation is in order.
Joe, I'd like to turn to we haven't spent a whole lot of time with this civil trial, or it's not a civil trial, excuse me, the trial against the fraud case against Donald Trump up in New York.
Yeah, that's a civil trial.
It is a civil trial. Thank you. I'm sorry. It's hard to keep them straight. Right. All of the charges that they've thrown against Donald Trump out of political motivation. We know that New York Attorney General Letitia James is an outright partisan hack who literally ran her entire campaign on elect me and I'll get Donald Trump. It doesn't matter. You show me the man, I'll find you the crime, right?
Exactly.
But the judge here, the judge's behavior is really starting to get some focus. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik has actually put forth an ethics complaint against the judge. What do you know about this, man? And also, why is this trial a judge ruling instead of a jury ruling?
Because they have used a very rare statute that exists on the books. It's in New York. Very few states have a statute like this that allow this type of consumer protection. Now, this is a consumer protection, consumer fraud piece of litigation, and yet no consumer filed a complaint against the Trump organization for any of the alleged violations. The banks didn't sue Trump. They didn't file a complaint. The insurance companies, any of the realtors, any of the people who are buying and selling buildings. This is an insult to use this statute. In fact, I believe ultimately, if the Court of Appeals in New York does its job correctly, they will throw out this entire case because it is ill-founded. It's ridiculous. For example, the finding that the Trump organization committed fraud, which was a summary finding based on pleadings that were filed by both sides. The Attorney General made a motion for summary judgment based on all the documents that were filed in the case. The judge in the case granted summary judgment on the fraud issue. I believe that was absolutely a complete error and should be reversed by the Court of Appeals on a full record. There's no way you can have a fraud case like this tried without having full exposition of experts from the other side, full testimony, and none of that occurred. So I think this judge decided to keep this case, decided to keep this case. It should have been in another section of the court where they conduct complex civil matters, but instead he kept it in his courtroom. And, he's announced that he's retiring after this case. Yeah. Well, my goodness, that certainly warms my heart. I guess what he's going to do while he's going out the door, we all really don't want to be a witness to.
Joe, believe it or not, we have more. Do you mind sticking with us just for a few more minutes?
Sure, great.
I just worry about your voice. You sound like, are you getting the same crud so many other people have right now?
Nah, I've got a little bit of allergies.
Oh, I hear you. All right. We'll get more Joe diGenova in a minute. Even a Joe diGenova diminished by allergies is better than pretty much anybody else we could have at this time.
The Vince Colonnade Show.
Weekday afternoons, 3 to 6.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
We continue this Monday morning with Joe diGenova, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. And sure, you saw the Virginia elections last week where the Democrats retained their one-seat lead in the in the Virginia Senate. Or did they? Luke Rosiak over at Daily Wire has a story out right now about Ghazala Hashmi, the Democrat, who was declared the winner in the 15th Senate District. However, there's now paperwork being filed that claims that she doesn't actually live in that district. She lives in an apartment outside the district. That would be in violation of Virginia law. But, Joe, how do these things usually play out? Because it seems like there's always violations. It always seems to be on the Democrat side, vast majority of the time. And they always find a judge to say, well, you know, we are loath to overturn an election, and it may be a technicality, but the will of the voter and blah, 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 blah.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that because she was, assuming all these facts are true, her name on the ballot was illegal, and therefore any votes cast in her favor should not be counted. Now, courts are loath to intervene in elections after they are over. We saw that in 2020. However, when something like this occurs, where it appears, we shall see if it's true, that a candidate has falsely claimed to be a resident, which is a requirement to run for the office, falsely claimed to be, if that's true, then she is disqualified. She cannot serve. She cannot be sworn in by the legislature, and a court has a right to do that, to enforce the law and say you are ineligible. And even if you move in now, it's too late, because when you ran for the office, you were not, people voted for you, you were not resident in this county. So, I mean, I don't know what the courts in Virginia are going to do. I mean, the truth is, I have been so disappointed by the performance of state and federal courts since 2020.
Yeah.
I have no confidence whatsoever that what you and I would consider to be the right thing to do will eventually get done.
Yeah, I'm with you, because I think the key word there is the courts can say that, but there's not a lot of confidence that they will. Finally, we want to just kind of get your thoughts on some of the stuff that's happened in D.C. Crime, of course, is going up, and now there's a local CVS that has actually replaced the shelves that housed toilet paper with now framed photos of the product. I guess you're supposed to get a salesperson to bring you whatever. I think it's kind of nice that they're at least framing them and making it look classy on the shelves there. The other thing I'd love your thoughts on is DC is now going to do away with a qualifying test that social workers have to take, sort of the dumbing down. So, just what are your thoughts on DC's continued decline?
All you have to do is drive downtown during the day and see it's a ghost town.
Yeah. And
it's a ghost town for a reason. It's a ghost town because the incompetent people who run the city, Mayor Bowser, and the loony people on the DC Council have driven the city into the ground. And by the way, it's fascinating that you hear nothing from the White House. This is their city. This is the city that the President of the United States lives in. You would think he would want to help out. He would want to bring them in and say, hey, guys, can you get your act together? You're making us all look like fools. But he can't do it because he needs them. He needs every one of those votes. He needs all the fools who run the city. There's nothing that can be done about this. If Congress were controlled by the Republicans and had the White House, there's tons of things you can do, as I did when I was U.S. Attorney, when I would see something that was amiss and I couldn't get the city council to deal with it, which was occasional. Back in those days, at least the city council had some reasonable people on it. But you have to go to the White House, and the White House has to dig in and deal with the House and the Senate and do resolutions and legislation to deal with it. The crime problem in the district is a direct function of a lazy United States attorney named Matthew Graves, who is just so consumed by January 6th that he doesn't have time for the crimes against the little people who go to work every day in D.C. Actually, they're not going to work in D.C. They're staying home and telecommuting because it's unsafe to go to work in D.C. Julie, D.C. is a mess. It's like every major democratically controlled city in the country. And all this BS about, oh, you can't say that about Democrats. It's not Democrats. It is absolutely the philosophy of the Democratic Party, current Democratic Party, not the historic Democratic Party, run by loons, that is driving these cities into the ground. All you have to do is spend 2 minutes listening to the mayor of Chicago. You will really see how crazy these people are. They just don't understand. Their answer, by the way, including Mayor Adams and the mayor of Chicago and elsewhere, their answer to the border problem: give us more money so we can house more people in our public housing. They don't say shut down the border. They say give us more money. That is a sick solution, but that's where their brains are. Yep. And I don't want to tell you where that brain is.
Right. That's where the brain are, but the head that holds the brain is in a dark, remote place. Thank you, Joe. Have a good Monday.
God bless you all.